We have a great education system, not only in Nebraska, but here in District 33. What we need is to make sure that we keep it strong. We need to look at teacher salaries so we can recruit and retain great educators for our school systems. I'd be in favor of paying student teachers, incentivizing those who go into education to become teachers, particularly here in the more rural areas of Nebraska.
And another Hastings business owner, Michelle Smith, says District 33 schools needs to stay comparable with what Eastern Nebraska schools are paying their teachers.
First and foremost, we have to make sure that we're paying our teachers competitive wages. That's part of supporting our schools. We want to make sure that we're competitive with Lincoln and Omaha. My son right now is going to college to be a teacher, so education is my #1 priority.
And former teacher Dan Lanuski says the state needs to take a lesson from a prominent District 33 school.
I would like every school in this state to look at Adams Central. It's not a perfect school, but they're doing 99% of everything correct. And we're turning out kids that become doctors, accountants, some go into the military.
And one candidate, Joshua Frederick, says he wants to change what is taught to kids in schools.
We need to remove the indoctrination side. Right now, a lot of schools are pushing for gender theory, LGBTQ theory, critical race theory, diversity, inclusion, and equity, a lot of propaganda instead of actual education. We need to teach children history, civics, probably increase in patriotism. Our country is something that's pretty fantastic.
I have met with people at their doors who are educators, and they provided child care, but they couldn't afford child care themselves. So unfortunately, that person couldn't even work because she couldn't afford child care for her own children. So I support Senator Frederickson's bill that's currently in the legislature to provide support for our child care workers.
And Joshua Frederick says he would like to help out early childhood education centers.
We need to cut the red tape. A lot of code buildup gets these daycare facilities shut down, whether it's lack of staffing or hand wash tables. I'd like to see an increase in grace period and perhaps accessibility to help these daycare systems stay open instead of just shutting them down.
And former teacher Dan Lanuski says he's seen how great the financial burden of childcare can be.
Because there are some mothers that go into the workforce and the entirety of their check goes toward child care of their 1 or 2 kids. So we have got to address that most likely in some sort of tax relief or tax rebate for those young families.
And Hastings business owner Paul Hamlick says not having enough affordable child care options could impact the state's economic growth.
Affordable child care is critically important. It affects our workforce. It's a huge issue for young families. It will be necessary to address that issue if we want to be competitive in the job market and attracting young professionals in particular, but every young family here to Nebraska.
Right now we have pretty subjective tax assessments, and they're always going up. We can do a property tax cap or reduce the amount of property taxes we get, percentage cap wise. With tax assessments, you're always going to be paying more. I'd like to see us removed from this system where we pay rent to the government to own our property. If you don't pay your property tax, you lose your property in 3 years, seized by the government.
And Dan Lanuski says he would like to see a long-term solution to property tax, not just a one-year plan.
We have to make whatever reform we do, we have to make that a long-standing issue and not just relief for 1 year. So we need to decide how are we going to keep our property taxes low, or how do we get tax reform without increasing or hurting the people that are doing all the producing.
And Michelle Smith says the state needs to bring property tax into conformity with other state tax systems.
Taxes is like a 3-legged stool. So we have property taxes, sales taxes, and income taxes. So we want to make sure that we have a balance between those three, which is very true. We have to have public schools, we have to have roads, we have to have police departments, but we can't tax people out of their homes or off of their farms.
And Paul Hamlick says even if property assessments rise, that shouldn't necessarily mean that people will pay more in property taxes.
We need to look at automatic rollbacks. When there are high raises in assessments, there shouldn't necessarily be high raises in tax revenue. So if your assessment goes up 30%, that doesn't necessarily mean the school and county and city all should get a 30% budget increase as well.